Leave before we escort you out. The VP's voice echoed through the executive suite. Lawrence Bennett, Vice President of Operations, stood behind his mahogany desk with his arms crossed, trying to look authoritative. 3 security guards flanked the doorway. My personal belongings were already in a cardboard box on the visitor's chair. They'd canceled my salary that morning, removed my name from payroll, revoked my building access. They thought they'd cut costs by eliminating my position. What they didn't know was that they'd been using my private assets for the past 18 months. My servers, my software licenses, my proprietary database architecture, resources I'd personally funded and maintained, resources that were currently running 70% of their operations. I didn't argue. I didn't get angry. I simply picked up my phone and opened my banking app. Lawrence watched me, confused. "What are you doing?" I looked up at him and smiled. "Calling your creditors." His face went pale. "What?" "The loan for your data center expansion. The one you secured using projected revenue from the systems currently running on my private infrastructure. I'm the technical guarantor on that loan, Lawrence, and I'm about to pull it." I hit send on the email I'd already drafted to First Commercial Bank. Subject line: Notice of asset withdrawal and technical guarantee revocation. Then I walked out while Lawrence scrambled for his phone, finally understanding what he'd just done. By the time I reached the parking lot, his $47 million loan was in default review. Before we get into how I engineered the perfect corporate implosion, if you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button. We just completed our first milestone, and we're on our way to 2,000 subscribers. Your support helps us bring you more real workplace justice stories. Now let me take you back to where this all began. My name is Eleanor Mitchell. For 6 years, I was the Chief Technology Officer at Apex Solutions, a mid-sized enterprise software company based in Austin, Texas. On paper, I managed the entire technology infrastructure for a company with 300 employees and $80 million in annual revenue. But that title doesn't tell you who I really am. I grew up in a small town outside of El Paso. My father was a mechanic who owned a 2-bay garage. My mother cleaned houses. We didn't have much, but they taught me to value honesty, hard work, and the importance of reading every contract before you sign it. I learned programming on a used computer my dad rebuilt from junk parts. I got my computer science degree from a state school while working full-time at a call center. I started my career fixing servers in a windowless basement, and I worked my way up by being better, smarter, and more dedicated than everyone around me. That background matters because it taught me something crucial. When you build something with your own hands, you remember who owns it. And you don't let anyone take it without a fight. When I joined Apex Solutions, I didn't just manage their technology. I revolutionized it. I built systems they didn't know they needed. I used my own money to fund infrastructure improvements when their budget ran dry. I created solutions on my personal servers and licenses because I cared about doing the job right, not just doing the minimum. And that generosity, that willingness to invest my own resources for the good of the company, became the weapon they handed me. The trouble started 14 months before Lawrence fired me. Apex Solutions had been struggling. Our biggest client, a healthcare consortium, threatened to leave because our systems were too slow. The infrastructure was outdated, the databases were inefficient, and the executive team had cut the IT budget by 40%. I went to the CEO, a man named Richard Castellano, with a proposal. "I can fix this, but I need budget approval for new servers, updated licenses, and database optimization tools. We're looking at about $2 million. Richard barely looked up from his phone. "Eleanor, we don't have $2 million. Figure it out with what you have." "What we have is failing. If we lose the healthcare consortium, that's $18 million in annual revenue. Then make sure we don't lose them. That's what I pay you for." I left his office frustrated but determined. I'd built my career on solving impossible problems, so I solved this one the only way I could. with my own resources. I had a personal data center set up. Not huge, but substantial. I'd been running side consulting projects on it, small contracts that brought in extra income. The servers were mine, purchased with money I'd earned. The software licenses were registered to my personal LLC. The database architecture I'd designed was proprietary. I owned the intellectual property. I made a decision that, in hindsight, was both brilliant and dangerous. I migrated 70% of Apex's critical operations to my private infrastructure. I did it over a weekend, working 48 hours straight. I optimized everything, rebuilt the databases, implemented caching systems that tripled our speed. Monday morning, the healthcare consortium ran their performance tests. Our systems were suddenly 3 times faster. They signed a 5-year contract extension worth $90 million. Richard called me into his office. "Eleanor, I don't know what you did, but whatever it was, keep doing it." I should have told him then. I should have explained that he was running his company on my personal assets. But I was tired and proud, and I figured I'd submit a reimbursement request once the crisis was over. I didn't realize Richard had no intention of reimbursing me for anything. Over the next year, I submitted 3 formal requests for infrastructure budget. Each one was denied. Meanwhile, Apex Solutions grew. We signed 4 new major clients. Revenue increased to $120 million annually. And all of it, every transaction, every data process, every critical operation, ran on infrastructure I personally owned and maintained. I was paying for server maintenance. I was renewing software licenses out of my own pocket. I was covering electricity costs for equipment that was running someone else's business 24 hours a day. The expenses added up. $30,000 in the first 6 months. $60,000 by the end of the year. I kept detailed records, kept submitting reimbursement requests, kept getting denied. Then Lawrence Bennett joined the company. Lawrence came from a corporate consulting background. He'd spent 15 years at firms that specialized in operational efficiency, which is code for cutting costs without regard for long-term consequences. Richard hired him to streamline operations and maximize profitability. Our first meeting, Lawrence walked into my office without knocking. "Eleanor, I've been reviewing department budgets. Your IT spending is remarkably low. How are you running enterprise operations on basically nothing?" I should have lied. I should have been vague. Instead, I was honest. I've implemented some creative solutions: optimized architecture, efficient resource allocation, strategic use of cloud services. Good. Keep it up. I'm cutting your budget another 20% next quarter. He left before I could respond. That night, I went home and calculated exactly how much of my personal money was subsidizing Apex Solutions. The number was $87,000. I was essentially paying them to let me work there. I drafted an email to Richard and Lawrence, detailing exactly what infrastructure they were using, who owned it, and what it was costing me personally. I attached invoices, receipts, server logs, everything. I hovered over the send button for 10 minutes. Then I saved it as a draft and closed my laptop. Something told me I might need leverage later. I didn't realize how soon later would come. 2 months before they fired me, I walked into the office at 6 in the morning and found Lawrence in the server room. My server room. The one that required keycard access that only I and 2 of my senior engineers had. "Lawrence, what are you doing here?" He was standing in front of my primary rack, taking photos with his phone. "Due diligence. I'm documenting all company assets for the expansion loan application." My stomach dropped. "Expansion loan? Richard didn't tell you? We're securing a $47 million loan for a major expansion. New office space, sales team growth, market development. The bank wants documentation of all technical assets and infrastructure capacity." I stepped closer, looking at what he was photographing. My equipment, my servers, systems with asset tags that clearly showed my personal LLC as the owner. "Lawrence, You can't list this equipment as company assets. Why not? It's running company operations. It's in the company facility. It's supporting company revenue. That makes it a company asset. No, it makes it my asset that the company is using. I own this equipment. I own the licenses. I own the architecture. None of this belongs to Apex. Lawrence lowered his phone and looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Eleanor, you can't expect the company to believe you personally own all this infrastructure. I don't expect you to believe it. I have receipts, purchase orders, registration documents, and IP filings that prove it. Then you made a mistake when you set it up. Equipment purchased for company use should have been purchased under the company name. We'll need you to sign some transfer documents to clean up the ownership records. I'm not signing anything. This is my property. Lawrence's expression hardened. Eleanor, we're trying to secure a major growth loan. The bank needs to see that we have solid technical infrastructure. If you're going to be difficult about some administrative paperwork, maybe we need to reconsider whether you're a team player. Are you threatening me? I'm asking you to be reasonable. Sign the transfer documents. We'll reimburse you for the original purchase costs. And everyone moves forward. What about the 18 months of maintenance, licensing fees, electricity, and operational costs? We can discuss a reasonable settlement after the loan closes. I knew what that meant. After the loan closed, I'd never see a penny. They'd have what they wanted, and my leverage would be gone. I'll think about it, I said. Lawrence smiled. Don't think too long. We need those documents signed by Friday. He walked out, leaving me standing in front of servers I'd paid for, that were running a company that was about to use them as collateral for a loan I'd never benefit from. I pulled out my phone and called my attorney. My attorney, a sharp woman named Monica Chen, listened to the whole story without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Eleanor, please tell me you have documentation proving you own this equipment. Every receipt, every license agreement, every IP filing, all in my name or my LLC's name. And they're using it to secure a business loan. Apparently. That's fraud. If they're representing assets they don't own as collateral, that's bank fraud. What do I do? First, don't sign anything. Second, send me all your documentation. Third, I'm going to draft a formal notice to the company and the bank clarifying ownership of these assets. Won't that kill their loan? Eleanor, that's not your problem. They're using your property without permission and misrepresenting it to a financial institution. You're not obligated to participate in that. If I do this, they'll fire me. Monica's voice was firm. If they fire you for asserting your property rights, that's retaliation and wrongful termination. Document everything. Record conversations if Texas law allows it, which it does, since it's a one-party consent state. And prepare for the possibility that this gets ugly. I spent the next 3 days gathering documentation. Every invoice for every server, every software license renewal, every electrical bill showing the power consumption charges I'd paid. The original IP filings for the database architecture, asset tags with my LLC's information. I organized it all into a comprehensive package and sent it to Monica. Then I waited. Friday came. Lawrence appeared at my office door. Eleanor, did you prepare those asset transfer documents? I'm not signing any transfer documents, Lawrence. That equipment is mine, and it's going to stay mine. His jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. No. You made the mistake when you tried to use my property as loan collateral without my permission. We'll see about that. He walked away. I sent a text to Monica. It's escalating. Her response, good. Let them escalate. We're ready. The following Monday, I received a meeting invitation. Subject, staff restructuring discussion. Attendees, me, Richard, Lawrence, and HR Director Beth Hammond. I knew what this was. I prepared carefully. I wore my best suit. I brought a leather portfolio with copies of all my documentation. I turned on the voice recording app on my phone. Texas is a one-party consent state, and I was definitely consenting to record this conversation. The meeting was in the main conference room. Richard and Lawrence were already there when I arrived. Beth showed up 2 minutes later, looking uncomfortable. Richard started talking before I even sat down. Eleanor, we're making some organizational changes. We've decided to outsource IT operations to a managed service provider. Your position is being eliminated, effective today. I didn't react. I see. And what about the infrastructure currently running your operations? Lawrence jumped in. The managed service provider will handle the transition. We'll be migrating to their systems over the next 60 days. The systems you're currently running on are mine. Personal property. You can't migrate what you don't own. Richard waved his hand dismissively. Eleanor, we've been over this. Equipment operated for company purposes is still my equipment, purchased with my money, registered to my LLC. I have documentation proving ownership of every server, every license, every piece of architecture you're currently using. Beth, the HR director, looked alarmed. Richard, did we verify the asset ownership before planning this restructuring? It's a non-issue, Lawrence said firmly. Eleanor installed this equipment on company premises for company use. Any reasonable interpretation would classify it as company property. I opened my portfolio and slid copies of purchase receipts across the table. Here are the invoices showing I purchased this equipment with personal funds. Here are the asset tags registered to Mitchell Technical LLC, my company. Here are the software licenses in my name. And here's the intellectual property filing for the database architecture. Filed 18 months ago. Owned by me personally. Richard's expression shifted from dismissive to concerned. Why would you use personal equipment for company operations? Because you cut my budget to nothing and told me to figure it out. So I did. I used my own resources because I cared about doing the job right. And now you're trying to fire me and keep using my property. We'll purchase the equipment from you, Lawrence said quickly. We'll pay fair market value. Fair market value for used servers? Or fair market value for a functioning infrastructure system that's currently generating $120 million in annual revenue? Because those are very different numbers. The room went quiet. Beth cleared her throat. I think we need to pause this conversation and consult with legal. Leave before we escort you out. Lawrence was on his feet, his face flushed red. You're terminated, Eleanor. Effective immediately. We'll send you a separation agreement. You can work out the equipment situation with our attorneys. I stood up slowly, gathering my portfolio. You're making a mistake, Lawrence. The only mistake was keeping you around this long. Security will escort you to collect your personal items. I looked at Richard. He wouldn't meet my eyes. One more thing, I said calmly. That expansion loan you're about to close, the one where you used my infrastructure as collateral, I'm the technical guarantor on that loan. The bank required someone to certify that the technical assets could support the projected growth. You had me sign that certification 6 weeks ago, remember? You told me it was just a formality. Lawrence's expression faltered. What's your point? My point is that as the technical guarantor, I have the right to revoke my certification if the underlying conditions change. And they're about to change dramatically. I walked to the door where 2 security guards were waiting. I handed them my company laptop and building access card. Then I pulled out my phone and sent the email I'd already drafted. 2. First Commercial Bank. Commercial Lending Department, C.C. Monica Chen, Attorney at Law. Subject: Notice of Asset Withdrawal and Technical Guarantee Revocation. I watched Lawrence check his phone, watched his face go from red to white. What did you just do? I informed your bank that the technical infrastructure they're using to justify the loan doesn't belong to the company. I've withdrawn my technical certification, and I've provided documentation proving ownership of the systems in question. I'd estimate you have about 48 hours before they put the loan in default review. Richard stood up so fast, his chair rolled backward. Eleanor, you can't. I absolutely can. You fired me. You terminated my employment. That means I'm no longer obligated to provide my personal resources to support your business. So I'm taking them back. I left the building and drove straight to my personal data center facility. It was a small warehouse space I rented about 15 miles from the Apex Solutions office. This is where my servers lived, the physical hardware that was currently running their entire operation. My senior engineer, a brilliant woman named Keisha Roberts, was already there. I'd given her a heads up that things might explode today. They fired you? She asked. About 30 minutes ago. How fast can we migrate everything off our infrastructure? Migrate where? And migrate what? Exactly. Everything that belongs to them, their data, their configurations, their files, needs to move to their own systems. Everything that belongs to us, our servers, our architecture, our proprietary code, stays here. Keisha pulled up the network topology on her laptop. Eleanor, their own systems are basically non-existent. When you rebuilt everything, you replaced their infrastructure. They don't have servers capable of running these operations. Not my problem anymore. If we pull our systems out from under them, they'll crash. Complete operational failure. Then they'll crash. They fired me to cut costs while continuing to use my resources. They fraudulently represented my assets as loan collateral. They bet that I'd be too scared or too professional to pull the plug. They bet wrong. My phone started ringing. Lawrence. I declined the call. It rang again. Richard. Declined. Text messages started flooding in. Lawrence. We need to talk about this reasonably. Richard. Don't do anything hasty. Let's discuss terms. Beth from HR. Please call me. We can work this out. I turned off my phone. Keisha was watching me with something like awe. You're really going to do this? I'm really going to do this. They want to cut costs? Let's see how much it costs to rebuild their entire technical infrastructure from scratch. They want to fire me? Fine, but they don't get to fire me and keep my stuff. What do you need me to do? Start the extraction process. I want every piece of our proprietary code, every database structure, every optimization we built. All of it documented and preserved. Then I want a clean migration plan that moves their data to whatever systems they actually own. We'll give them 72 hours to arrange alternative infrastructure. After that, we're shutting down our servers. Eleanor, they'll sue. Let them. I have documentation proving I own every asset. They have fraudulent loan documents claiming they own what's mine. I'll take those odds. Keisha started typing. 72 hours. I'm on it. 6 hours later, I was sitting in Monica Chen's office when my phone, which I'd turned back on, rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Eleanor Mitchell. Ms. Mitchell, this is Gregory Payne from First Commercial Bank. I'm the senior loan officer handling the Apex Solutions expansion loan. Do you have a few minutes to discuss your email from this morning? Of course. Your email states that you own the technical infrastructure that Apex Solutions listed as company assets in their loan application. Is that correct? Completely correct. I have comprehensive documentation, purchase receipts, license agreements, asset registrations, and intellectual property filings. All of it proves that the infrastructure running Apex's operations belongs to me personally, not to the company. I heard typing on the other end. And you were the technical guarantor who certified that these systems could support projected operational growth? I was. At the time, I was employed by Apex and willing to maintain my systems for their use. As of this morning, I'm no longer employed there. They terminated me, so I'm no longer willing to provide my personal resources for their business operations. I see. Ms. Mitchell, I need to be clear about something. If what you're saying is accurate, Apex Solutions misrepresented the collateral on a $47 million loan application. That's a serious matter. I understand. That's why I'm providing full documentation to your fraud investigation team. More typing. We're going to need to put this loan on hold pending verification. Can you meet with our team tomorrow to review your documentation? I can meet today, if you'd like. Today would be excellent. Would 2 o'clock work? It would. I hung up and looked at Monica. She was smiling. You just killed their loan. They killed their loan when they committed fraud. I just informed the bank. At 2 o'clock, I was sitting in a conference room at First Commercial Bank with Gregory Payne, 2 other loan officers, and a woman from their legal department. I brought my portfolio of documentation and a flash drive with digital copies of everything. I walked them through it systematically. Server purchase receipts showing my credit card charges. Software license renewals billed to my email. Asset tags registered to Mitchell Technical, LLC. The electrical bills for the warehouse facility. The IP filings for the proprietary database architecture. Gregory reviewed a purchase invoice for one of the main servers. This shows you paid $42,000 for this equipment, Ms. Mitchell. That's correct. And Apex Solutions listed it as a company asset valued at $45,000 in their loan application. Then they listed property they don't own. The legal woman, whose name was Anne Rutledge, leaned forward. Did you ever sign any documents transferring ownership of this equipment to Apex Solutions? Never. They asked me to sign transfer documents last week. I refused. They fired me this morning, I believe, because of that refusal. Anne made notes. Did anyone at Apex ever explicitly acknowledge that this was your personal property? I pulled out my phone and played the recording from this morning's termination meeting. The part where I explained the ownership and Lawrence said, "We'll purchase the equipment from you. We'll pay fair market value." Anne's eyebrows went up. He acknowledged they don't own it. On a recorded conversation from this morning, approximately 6 hours ago. Gregory closed the file folder in front of him. Ms. Mitchell, I appreciate your transparency here. Unfortunately, this means we can't proceed with the Apex Solutions loan. The collateral they claimed doesn't exist. Or rather, it exists, but they don't own it. We'll be sending them a formal denial letter and referring this matter to our fraud investigation team. What happens to Apex Solutions now? That's not really your concern, is it? You've been transparent with us, which we appreciate. What they did with this information was their choice. I left the bank at 4:30. By 5 o'clock, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Richard. The bank canceled our loan. You've destroyed this company. I hope you're proud of yourself. I didn't respond. 72 hours after my termination, Keisha completed the migration plan. We'd successfully extracted all of our proprietary code, documented every system we'd built, and prepared their data for transfer to whatever infrastructure Apex could arrange. The problem was, they hadn't arranged any infrastructure. I sent a formal email to Richard and Lawrence. As of 6 p.m. today, Mitchell Technical LLC will be shutting down all servers and systems currently supporting Apex Solutions operations. Your data has been prepared for migration and is available for pickup in standard formats. You have until 5 p.m. to arrange retrieval. After that time, you'll need to coordinate with our attorneys. At 5:45 p.m., my phone rang. Lawrence, I answered. Yes? Eleanor, you can't do this. If you shut down those systems, we'll have complete operational failure. Your clients will experience the consequences of your decision to fire the person maintaining your infrastructure. You wanted to cut costs, Lawrence. Congratulations. We'll sue you for breach of contract, sabotage, whatever we need to. Sue me for what? Using my own property? You fired me. You terminated my employment. You tried to steal my assets for loan collateral, and now you're upset that I'm taking my property back? Good luck explaining that to a judge. Richard is willing to negotiate. We can discuss compensation for the equipment, a consulting arrangement to maintain. You had 9 months to discuss fair compensation. You had 3 formal reimbursement requests from me that you denied. You had last week when you could have agreed to reasonable terms instead of firing me. You're out of time. What do you want? Finally, the right question. I want payment for 18 months of infrastructure costs. Servers, licenses, maintenance, electricity, facility rental. The total is $137,000. I want it in certified funds by tomorrow at noon. That's extortion. No, that's billing you for services rendered. You used my equipment. You owe me rent. Pay up or shut down. Your choice. We don't have that kind of liquid cash. The loan fell through. Then I guess you shut down. You have until 6 p.m. After that, the servers go offline. I hung up. At 5:58 p.m., my email pinged. A message from Richard with an attached wire transfer confirmation. $137,000, deposited to Mitchell Technical, LLC. I forwarded it to Monica Chen with a note. Payment received. What now? Her response. Now we discuss the next phase. They paid for past use. What about future use? I smiled and started typing. The next morning, I sent another email to Richard and Lawrence. Payment received for past infrastructure use. However, Apex Solutions is still currently running on my systems. Going forward, if you wish to continue using this infrastructure, we need a formal service agreement. My rate is $50,000 per month, billed in advance, with a 6-month minimum commitment. Agreement must be signed by Friday, or systems will be shut down permanently. My phone rang within 10 minutes. Richard. Eleanor, $50,000 a month is insane. That's $600,000 a year. That's what it costs to use a private, custom-built infrastructure system that currently generates you $120 million in annual revenue. If you can build your own system for less, I encourage you to do so. You have about 4 days. We can't build a replacement system in 4 days. Then I guess you need to decide if $600,000 a year is worth it to avoid complete operational collapse. Silence on the line. Richard, let me explain something. You hired Lawrence to cut costs. You fired me to save my salary. What was it? $180,000 a year? But you kept using infrastructure that was worth 10 times that. You made a stupid bet. Now you're paying for it. We could go to a commercial provider. Absolutely. Get quotes from Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, whoever you want. Migrate your systems to their infrastructure. But that migration will take weeks, maybe months. And it'll cost you millions in consulting fees, migration costs, and operational disruption. Or you can pay me $50,000 a month and keep everything running smoothly while you plan your transition. More silence. I need to discuss this with the board, Richard finally said. You have until Friday. After that, the price doubles. I hung up and immediately got a call from Monica. Eleanor, I heard you negotiating. Please tell me you're not actually going to let them keep using your systems. Why not? If they want to pay me $50,000 a month, that's $600,000 a year for infrastructure I've already built. It costs me maybe $10,000 a month to maintain. That's a 90% profit margin. But you hate them. I do, but I also like money. And I like making them pay premium rates for something they could have had for a reasonable price if they'd just been honest with me from the start. This isn't revenge, Monica. It's business. She laughed. You're terrifying. Thank you. Thursday afternoon, I received a formal service agreement proposal from Apex Solutions. They wanted to negotiate the rate down to $30,000 per month. I sent back a one-word response. No. Friday at 9 a.m., I received a signed service agreement. $50,000 per month, 6-month minimum commitment paid in advance. The first payment, $300,000 for 6 months, hit my account at 10:30 a.m. I called Keisha. We're officially a contracted service provider now. Get ready to actually formalize operations. We're really doing this? We're going to keep working with the people who fired you? We're not working with them. We're renting them equipment and maintaining systems. They're a client now, nothing more. And the moment they can transition to their own infrastructure, they will. But until then, they're paying us very, very well. Over the next 6 months, Apex Solutions paid me $300,000. They desperately tried to build their own infrastructure, hired consultants, brought in vendors. Every attempt failed or ran over budget. At the end of the 6-month contract, they renewed. Another 6 months, another $300,000. Lawrence left the company after 4 months. The board fired him when they realized his cost-cutting had actually cost them more than it saved. Richard lasted another 2 months before he was pushed out by investors who were furious about the mishandled loan and the expensive infrastructure situation. The new CEO, a woman named Jennifer Park, called me 9 months after I'd been fired. "Eleanor, I've reviewed the situation we inherited. I understand why you did what you did, and honestly, I would have done the same thing. But we need a long-term solution. Would you consider selling us the infrastructure outright? What are you offering? $2 million for all equipment, licenses, and IP, plus a 2-year consulting contract at $15,000 a month to manage the transition and train our team." I did the math. $2 million plus $360,000 in consulting fees. Plus, I'd already collected $600,000 in rental fees. $2.5 million for the equipment. Keep the consulting contract as is. And I want it in writing that you'll hire Keisha Roberts as your new CTO at a salary of no less than $200,000. Keisha Roberts? The engineer who actually kept your systems running while I was fighting with your predecessors. She deserves to be compensated properly. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Done. I'll have the contracts drafted. 3 weeks later, I sold everything to Apex Solutions for $2.5 million. Keisha became their CTO with a salary I'd only dreamed of having. I kept the consulting contract, which meant I'd still be involved but on my terms. And the total amount I'd extracted from the company that fired me to cut costs? $3.4 million. 1 year after Lawrence fired me, I was having coffee in downtown Austin when I ran into him. He'd aged. There were lines on his face that hadn't been there before, and his expensive suit had been replaced with business casual that looked off the rack. "Eleanor?" "Lawrence." He hesitated, like he was deciding whether to keep walking or say something. He chose to say something. "I heard you sold your infrastructure to Apex for millions. Congratulations." "Thank you. I heard you're at a different firm now. How's that going?" "It's fine. Smaller company, less responsibility. More sustainable." We stood there awkwardly for a moment. "Lawrence, can I ask you something? What were you thinking that day you fired me? Did you really believe you could just take my equipment and I'd accept it?" He shook his head. "Honestly, I didn't think about it at all. I saw budget numbers. I saw an expensive CTO position, and I saw an opportunity to cut costs. I didn't think about where the infrastructure came from. I didn't think about who actually owned it. I just didn't think." That's the problem with people like you. You think technology just exists. You think systems run themselves. You don't see the people who build them, maintain them, sacrifice for them. You just see numbers on a spreadsheet. You're right. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Sorry I caught you committing loan fraud, or sorry you lost your job over it. He flinched. Both, I guess. I picked up my coffee. "Lawrence, I hope your new job teaches you something mine taught me. People matter. The employees who build your systems, who invest their time and money and expertise, they matter. Treat them like line items on a budget, and eventually, they'll show you exactly how much they're worth." I walked away, leaving him standing on the sidewalk. 2 years after the whole mess started, I was running Mitchell Technical Solutions as a full-time business. We specialized in infrastructure consulting for mid-sized companies, with a focus on fair contracts and transparent ownership. Keisha left Apex after 18 months. She'd learned everything she needed and was ready to build something new. She became my business partner, and together we grew the company to 20 employees. We built systems for companies across Texas. Every contract we wrote was crystal clear about who owned what. Every client knew exactly what they were paying for. Every engineer we hired was compensated fairly, with equity and profit sharing. And every time I reviewed a contract, I thought about that moment in the conference room when Lawrence yelled at me to leave before they escorted me out. When he thought firing me would solve his budget problems. He didn't understand that I wasn't just an employee. I was the infrastructure. I was the knowledge. I was the person who'd kept his company running with my own money and my own expertise because I cared about doing the job right. Fire me, and you fire the system. The call I made to the bank wasn't revenge. It was justice. They used my property fraudulently. They bet I'd be too professional or too scared to pull it back. They learned the hard way that property rights matter, that honesty matters, that you can't build a company on stolen resources and expect it to stand. My parents came to visit the new office last month. My dad walked through looking at the servers, the workstations, the team of engineers working on client projects. "You built this," he said, "just like I taught you. With your own hands, your own money, your own integrity. You taught me something else, too," I told him. "You taught me that when someone tries to take what's yours, you fight for it, not with anger, but with documentation and determination." My mom hugged me. "I'm proud of you, not because you made money, but because you stood up for yourself." That's what this story is really about. Not the millions of dollars, though that's nice. Not the revenge against Lawrence and Richard, though watching them fail had its satisfaction. It's about knowing your worth, about documenting everything, about understanding that when you build something with your own resources, you don't owe anyone the right to take it from you. Lawrence yelled at me to leave before they escorted me out. I left, but I took everything I'd built with me, and I made them pay for every single piece of it. If this story resonated with you, if you believe in standing up for yourself and knowing your worth, please subscribe to this channel. We're building a community of people who refuse to be taken advantage of in the workplace. We just hit our first milestone, and we're aiming for 2,000 subscribers next. Every subscription helps us continue bringing you real stories of workplace justice. Thank you for being part of this journey. Until next time, remember, document everything, know what you own, and never let anyone make you feel bad for protecting what's yours.